All right, so now we want to add a force to our cube to be able to make it move. So if we're thinking about this, we have three different directions in space that we can have them to move, right? There's up and down, which is, as we can see right here, y. There's left and right, which is x, and there's forward and back, or in and out, which is z in this case. Yours might be different. Always check this little gizmo up here to be able to figure out what direction is what. Or you can just test, and if you think it's going to send it forward but sends it off to the right, then you know that you chose the wrong coordinate system. Anyways, so we want to add a force in this direction to make our cube start walking in that way, or rolling probably in this case. So how we do that is we go into here, and I'm going to start off just putting in the start. We just want to see if we can give it a little nudge. So we have our player object. And if I type in player, you guys have seen me do this a few times already, but if I hit the dot, period, then it opens up this window. This window gives me all of the function calls, all of the attributes, all of the everything associated with this one object player. So in here, if I had no idea what I was looking for to do with this, I could just kind of scroll around and see what the thing I'm looking for is called. We're lucky, the first two are add explosion force and add force. So since we're looking to add force to our player object, it makes sense that this would probably be the one. So I'll click on this, and then I can hover over it, and it tells me that it's a rigid body, add force, which adds a force to the rigid body. Seems like that would make sense. So if we look inside here, inside these parentheses, it tells us what type of arguments or variables we can pass into this function in order to have some interesting effects, right? So I'm going to type in open parenthesis, and then it gives me four options. One of four says that it's looking for an input of a vector 3 for force. I don't know what vector 3 is, so we're going to look for the next one. Number 2 of 4 says a vector 3 of force and a force mode. Oh, sweet. So that means that it will not only add the force, but I can have different types of force that I would add to it. That's nice to know. Still don't know what that is, so I'm going to check out the next one. Boop. All right, add force, float. I know what a float is. A float is a type of number. So, and it has x, y, and z, which makes sense. Those would probably be our coordinates. We can add a number to represent a force in the x, y, and z coordinates. Yep, and see it kind of says it there. X is the size of the force alongside the world's x-axis. Sweet, so it kind of confirms it. So I know I want to go 0 in the x direction. I want to go 0 in the y direction. And then we want to move in the z, so let's try 1,000. When in doubt, go ridiculous. It'll be way easier to see what the effects will be. And then, see this little red line right here? That's telling us that we currently have an error. So if I mouse over, it says expected a semicolon. So how we end a statement in C# is we add a semicolon. It's kind of like adding a period to the end of a sentence. So I'll add a semicolon, and no more red line. We're all good. Cool. So I'm going to save it. File. File, save all, or I could just save this one asset, doesn't really matter. Control S is a quick shortcut key. And I'm going to go over here to our game, and let's play it and see what happens. Sweet, it definitely added a force. It kicked it about that way, which is what I was expecting. Cool, it actually rolled. Let's see that again. Launch it forward, hit the ground, rolled over a little bit, sweet, but then it stops. This isn't really a good continuous runner because it's not continuously running. It kind of gets one decent kick into the game and then stops. The reason why that happens is if we go back into our code, we only put in the start. So start is only called before the first frame update, which means that this force will only be applied once. Okay? So if we wanted it to continuously add the force to it over time, then we'd put it inside the update method, which is called once per frame. Cool. So let's click and drag this down here. Control S to save. Go back into our game. Give it a second to load, and let's see what happens. Whoosh! Alright, well, it definitely went that way. Went pretty fast. Maybe we want to change it to, I don't know, 500. So I'll go back into my code, add force, 0x, 0y, and now 500 on the z. Save, go back, try again. Click. Still seems like it's going a little bit fast. Might just be me, but I want to go a little bit slower. So now this is starting to get a little bit repetitive, where I have to go into the code and then go back to the editor and then go into the code and then back into the error. Wouldn't it be really nice if I could just adjust the speed in the script area right here? That way I don't have to keep scrolling back and forth. How do you think we do that? The exact same way that we added the player here, right? So if I go under here and I add another public variable, and this is a public, float, right? Because it takes in a float for its z speed. So float. And then we'll name forward speed. Again, semicolon at the end is like the period at the end of a sentence. So it closes it off and says that this is one complete statement. So now all I have to do is go down here, and instead of 500, I'll reference that variable, forward speed. See? Now, just in case, I'm going to have this have a default value. We'll say the default value will be 500. So all I have to do is say forward speed equals with 1 equal 500, and then automatically forward speed will start out at 500. Just in case I forget to save some change or I forget to set it somewhere, they'll make it so it always has a default and won't cause an error. So I'm going to hit save, go into here, and then sometimes, there it goes, forward speed is a float of 500. See? And now I can change this in here to maybe 100, and it'll always take the setting that I put it in here inside the variable, because it will load the script first and then it will look for updates that have happened inside the inspector window after it loads. So I hit play. Well, we're getting better. It still hits the ground. Maybe we want it to be a little bit less. Let's try 20. That seems a bit more reasonable. So, there we have it. We have a player cube that rolls forward. Maybe we don't want it to fall off the edge, but that'll be a theory for next lesson. Make sure that you catch up to this point. Don't watch all the videos and then just close the video and never make your actual game, right? Catch up to this point. If you haven't been following along with Unity and in Visual Studio, make sure that you can get this to happen, because the rest of it will be dependent on this initial beginning behavior. Okay, so catch up, check out the next lesson to see how we can make this look a little bit more stable and a bit more like a game.